Alright, it's Henry again, and this is my review of my 1 to 100 scale Virgo II model kit. And if you saw my work in progress videos, you saw me going through everything, getting this guy scratch built and put together. And as of right now, this is the only way to get a 1 to 100 scale Virgo II, by making one yourself. B Club did make a 1 to 144 scale resin Virgo II, but as far as 1 to 100 scale goes, this is your only option. Now, I made this kit mostly by recasting parts from my 1 to 100 scale Virgo, and then scratch building new shoulder armor, backpack, modifying the legs. The knee armor is missing right now, but it'll be back in a minute. And this is what it looks like, completely unpainted. This is just bare resin, epoxy putty, and plot plate. So let's go ahead and give this guy a nice coat of paint and continue on with the review. Alright, and after a coat of paint, this is what Virgo II ends up looking like. As you can see, I went with the White Fang color scheme rather than the Oz color scheme. I figured I did the red and black Oz colors for Virgo 1. I wanted to do something different for Virgo 2. Plus, this is the color scheme that most people associate with Virgo 2 anyway. So, I did kind of a greenish tan. It's more of a tan, but it does have a little hint of green in it. Just did some highlighting on that. The planet defensors are a dark greenish gray, and the backpacks I did in a lighter greenish tan. I think they've got a little bit more green in them than the rest of the armor, but I think they still ended up looking pretty good. Got the White Fang decals that I got from Samuel Decal. He was nice enough to make those for me. Another one there on the shoulder. And the rest of the decals are all just generic caution markings. I was originally thinking about doing white, but I thought white might not look as good on this tan armor, so I went with black instead. But looking at the final kit, I think white probably would have worked out fine, but then again, black works just as well too. So, as far as stuff that I've made for the kit, obviously the Virgo II, I've made a beam cannon. I made 2 beam rifles that will be able to fit inside the backpack units. It's got 2 beam sabers and a selection of hands. It's actually got 3 trigger finger hands. One is already kind of permanently attached to the beam cannon. Got 2 more for the beam rifles and the beam sabers. An open hand for the left, and then 2 closed fists. So, that is, I guess, all the explanation I can give about the paint job and everything I've included with the kit. So, let's go ahead and get into articulation. Now, before we start, I won't say that I did a great job with Virgo II's articulation, because I didn't. Part of that is, well, I don't know, part of that is just my lack of skill when it comes to articulating stuff, and part of it is just because of Virgo II's design, because I mean, these shoulders there's no way they're going to have very much posability at all, and I've got some articulation issues in the legs too, but we'll get to that later. The head I've got on a ball joint, so it can go up and down, side to side, and of course rotate 360. The torso, on my first Virgo, I had a ball joint at mid-torso, but it left kind of an awkward gap between the lower and upper torso, so I just left that out this time because it really didn't add that much posability to my first Virgo. So I've just made that permanently attached there, and then he's got the 360 degree rotation at the waist, or it could rotate 360 if these giant backpacks weren't in the way and the joint wasn't so tight. The shoulders actually can go 360, and surprisingly, they're strong enough to hold up the backpacks with no problem, as you can see. So I was worried about there being weight issues with the shoulder joint, but there really aren't. It's actually able to hold its own, as you can see, even holding it out, even though the arm can't go out very far. It only goes out about that far because the backpack touches the torso there. But it is able to hold the weight of the backpack just fine, I think. Anyway, it's got a 360 below the shoulder. The elbows, I did the same elbow joints I did on Virgo. Again, it's only going to get about a 90-degree bend. They're not great. Luckily, I've got a new idea for elbow and knee joints that I'm going to try out on my next Oz Project kit, and hopefully that'll work out a little bit better. The hands are all fixed pose, and they're just on ball joints, so they can rotate and wiggle and do all that good stuff. The hip joints are ball joints, so they can go forward about that far, back, in and out a little bit. As you can see, the side skirt kind of hampers the outward movement a bit. The knee joints are, I don't know, Virgo II's knee joint, the armor around the knee joint is shaped so awkwardly that it was really hard to determine how I was going to do it. I was able to get I want to say a little bit more than a 90-degree bend, not much. I mean, it bends there, so the knee armor moves with the knee joint a little bit, and it just looks awkward. Everything about Virgo II's knee joint was awkward, so it was just really kind of hard to scratch build and then kind of hard to articulate it afterwards. So, not great posability in the knees, unfortunately. The ankle armor is loose. It just kind of floats on top of these little gray round things. And the ankle joint is a ball joint, so it can go forward and back, and a little bit of side to side and a little bit of rotation. Got some detail on the bottom of the feet there, thruster, detail on the underside of the side skirts, and detail on the underside of the shoulder armor as well. Even did a little bit of detail on the up under the planet defensors as well. That's just one thing I always appreciate on, when I buy a resin kit or even on a Bandai plastic kit, is the extra attention to detail up under the armor. Even though most of the time it doesn't show, it's just nice that it's there, so that's something that I really like to try and do on my kits as well. So, actually no, we have one last bit of articulation. I thought we were done. Rotate him around to the back, and these hatches on the back of the backpacks can open up, and I've got some little thrusters up inside there. They're okay, I guess. Well, the thrusters themselves are really, really nice. There's some metal thrusters I bought. I painted the outside gunmetal, painted the inside with clear red, so it ended up being a metallic red. And the thrusters themselves are great. I'm not convinced that I did a very good job mounting them in there. I think I could have done that better. But they're going to be closed most of the time, so it's not like I'm going to be seeing them often. Anyway, rotate this guy around. You'll notice I'm handling this guy very, very gently. With the backpacks, as you might imagine, Virgo II has quite the weight issue. He's extraordinarily back heavy. I have to, at all times, be mindful of how he's balanced, because these backpacks, while he is able to stand on his own perfectly fine, not even really leaning forward at all, he is still back heavy. The slightest little push and he'll probably fall over backwards. So he does stand up, but I just got to be careful not to bump into the table or anything. So now that that covers articulation, let's go ahead and start with the weapons and accessories. So the first accessory we'll go over is the beam cannon. Now, I based this off of a recast of my Virgo I beam cannon. Had to modify it quite a bit. Added these two nylon hoses to the back of it. Rather than having one trigger finger hand and just switching it out for the beam cannon, beam saber, and beam rifle, I decided it'd be easier just to make multiple trigger finger hands and permanently affix one to the beam cannon, since the beam cannon can't really be stored anywhere, so it's not like I'm ever going to have it displayed without him holding it. Added a little camera eye right here, which I thought was a nice touch. Just got a little clear jewel and went over that with a pink Sharpie, and it actually turned out better than expected. Switch out the hands, and there we go. Hold it nice and firmly. No weight issues at all. If you can get his shoulder to rotate, it's pretty hard to get him to hold it outward with this giant backpack on him. But still, I didn't bother making a connector for the other end of the energy hoses. They just kind of go up inside the backpack there. So I didn't really see a point in making a connector on the other end, since they just sort of disappear into the backpack. But overall, I was pleasantly satisfied with the beam cannon. I didn't think it was going to turn out all that great, but I actually like the way it turned out. The next accessory for Virgo II is the beam rifle. Now, I made this out of a old GPO-1 beam rifle and just modified it to look like Virgo II's. And it's actually pretty simple. It doesn't have any moving parts or anything. It's just, it is what it is. And it'll fit in the hand. This is the other trigger finger hand. This one I made the fingers removable so I could actually put them onto the handle. And there you go. Have him holding it. No real weight issues. Again, same thing with the beam cannon. Getting him to pose it is just a matter of getting the backpack out of the way. So it's kind of like that. Sort of almost the same problem Tallgeese has with its thruster pods on its shoulders as well. One other little feature of the beam rifles is that they can be stored inside the backpack. And I hollowed out the backpacks and designed them in such a way that I could just slide the beam rifles in there. They're not really clipped into place, they just kind of sit there. But they don't fall out, and they stay put pretty well, as long as you don't shake them around or anything. So in that case, I think it was a pretty successful little gimmick. Next up are the two beam sabers. And a lot of people don't even realize that Virgo II even has beam sabers, because it didn't use it very much in the show. I think in the story they determined that that a human pilot pretty much always had an advantage over a mobile doll in close quarters combat. It was ranged combat in which the mobile dolls had a advantage, so they didn't get deployed with beam sabers very often. But there are a couple scenes in Gundam Wing where you'll see Virgo II using beam sabers. And the handles were left over from an old Master Grade Alex. The blade is from one of my 1/100 scale Tallgeeses, one of the many I've bought over the years. And it'll just use the same hand as the beam rifle, and of course, just being a beam saber, it'll hold it just fine. And just like on my first Virgo, I made a energy shield for Virgo II. This time around, it's quite a bit bigger, since Virgo II has 8 planet defensors instead of just 4 like the first Virgo. And I went about it the exact same way. I took a piece of clear plastic and then put hot glue around the edge of it to make kind of the electricity effect. Airbrushed it with some fluorescent green. Did pink on Virgo, since Virgo II has kind of a dark grayish, greenish colored planet defensors. I used green. And then put in some little brass pins for the planet defensors to sit on the energy shield. And made a little connector at the bottom so it can connect to this little action base block and stand on its own. And I think it worked out pretty well. I didn't bother to do any battle damage parts for Virgo II. Virgo II's got enough weight issues and stability issues that I didn't want to be disassembling him unnecessarily, so I left off the battle damaged parts for this kit. And before we wrap up, I wanted to do a few comparisons. Here, of course, is my Virgo II next to my Virgo I that I finished last month, and next to the Master Grade Wing Gundam Virgo, just for a scale comparison. So there we go. And here is just a selection of various Oz mobile suits, all in 1:100 scale. Alright, that about does it for my review of the 1:100 scale Virgo II. And overall, I think I did a pretty good job on this kit. I think it looks great. I really am satisfied with the way the sculpting and the paint job came out. As you heard in the earlier portions of the video, I'm not too thrilled about the articulation and posability. Again, some of that's due to Virgo II's design, and some of it's my fault, so either way. But rather than dwell on that, I'd rather look forward and think about how I'm going to improve the posability and articulation on my future model kits. So, I honestly can't think of anything else that needs to be said about this kit. I enjoyed this project. I got it done a lot quicker than I did Virgo, that's for sure. Even though I went over my schedule a little bit by a couple weeks, but still, I finished him in a reasonable amount of time, I think. Working from the recasts from my Virgo definitely helped. That way I didn't have to scratch build the entire kit. So, that about does it for this review and this project, and with that, I'll see you guys next time. Oh, and one more thing. To the guy who put the 1:144 scale B Club resin Virgo and Virgo II model kits on eBay, had people watching them and bidding on them, and then took them down so you could sell them to your friend, I dedicate this video to you.